Why do you think they won't have it?
Because they don't want to get in. They don't want to have problems with their neighbors.
They're afraid. They're
afraid. Yes.
And they are afraid of retaliation from the neighbors.
From the neighbors, not necessarily, and maybe the feeling that they can't be protected by the police. So.
Do you think it's possible, and I'm not suggesting this is true, do you think it's possible that people who don't want to help police do so because they feel the police won't make it enough of a priority to protect them?
I don't think that.
Think about that for a minute.
Well, I think that in some areas, yes, but it depends on the police department and whether the police department has made it a priority. And that depends on the leadership of the police department. It always depends on the leadership and how it trickles down to the police officers themselves. If there's not a feeling that we need the help from everyone, the trickle down effect to some degree. So yes, things start from the top and they trickle down. Or the same thing with not being able to for the supervisors to understand that there's a problem at the bottom that we need to take care of, so that there is the aspect of fairness.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Ms. Law,
yes.
What do you feel about what Mr. Bush just told us?
I agree with what he says. I do think that there's profiling out there. I think there's also, as he said, stereotyping. And I think we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't admit to ourselves that we did some type of stereotyping at one time with another, whether it be a young black man or a Spanish or a Muslim or anybody for that matter. I find it unusual, and I wanted to bring this fact out, that even some of the attorneys, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they mentioned teachers or nurses, wasn't that type of a stereotype saying that, oh, well, those people in that profession are typically more caring or softer in what their thoughts are? And, so for anybody to say to themselves that we don't stereotype, I think they're lying to themselves.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fanassi, how do you feel about the conversation we've been having?
To go back to your first question, where you asked if we felt that African American males, particularly younger ones, are maybe treated differently. Sadly, I would have to say yes. Have I personally witnessed it? No, I haven't. I've grown up a white male, and but I do think they're treated differently, sadly. But not in all cases.
Okay. Of course. Nothing always. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the two different opposing views that have come out in the news media? I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of hashtag Black Lives Matter versus hashtag Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Most of you have heard of that. What are your feelings on that, Mr. Fanassi?
I understand. I think I understand both sides, and why they're doing it. I can't really say, I understand the hashtag thing, because I don't do Twitter. But
I don't even do Twitter. Somebody in my team told me about this lady over here, and she told me, you might want to talk about this a little bit. And I'm like, really? Hashtag? What is that? So, believe me, I get it. I do. And then, of course, we have...
personally speaking, as I said, as a white male, and I hear the opposing views of Black Lives Matter, but my personal feeling is I haven't walked in a young African American male's shoes, and I'm not sure how much I can really understand what they've gone through in their lives. But all lives are different too. I grew up a white male, 2 parents, private schools. All circumstances are different.
As a juror, Mr. Fanassi, I'm really not trying to be disrespectful. Despite your upbringing, because we all have our upbringing, would you be able to sit and listen to evidence or testimony potentially explaining how life might be for someone else, even though you experience life differently?
No, absolutely, because I think of who I am. I think I'm a fair person. I like to listen to all sides before I form a conclusion. So I definitely think I could.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain, what are your feelings on the topic? Do you agree with Mr. Finassi or somebody else in the group?
Topic of?
Going back to, I originally talked about, it's possible, it's likely, or it does happen that young black men are treated differently by law enforcement. You heard me say that.
Yeah.
First, what are your feelings about that idea?
I feel it's possible that cop may see a certain person, pull them over because of that person is there. But I also have to go back to the fact the gentleman from Berkeley said everything checked out, so the cop said go ahead and go on your way. Also, you know what I'm saying? I mean, no doubt they were profiled that they were rich people. I hope that it was beepers or, I don't know, instead of they've been selling drugs or something, I don't know. But when they checked out, they were let go, in a sense. So,
Thank you. Mr. Burger.
is it right?
Oh, sorry. I thought you finished. No. Do you have anything else to say? No? Okay. Mr. Burgess, what are your feelings on the topic?
Yeah, there's a lot of, good viewpoints that have come up, and it's a lot to consume and try and get all figured out, but, I mean, it's very complicated, for sure.
Let me ask it this way.
Yes,
Let me first start with the news media that we talked about.
yes.
The hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Blue Lives Matter. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't,
Okay.
not with that.
Forget that.
Yeah.
You've heard the news stories about, I thought, for example, the gentleman in Texas who was shot at pumping gas in his
Yes.
car? Okay. You heard about that?
Yes, the officer.
Yes. And have you heard any of the stories, such as South Carolina, about a cop who shot a black man and then
Yes.
tried to cover it up? Okay. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Those news incidents have sparked, for lack of a better term, a division in the country where some people fall on one or the other side. Okay? I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
explaining it to you.
understood.
You heard those news stories. I'd like to know what your opinion is about both of those. Do you think they're accurate? Do you think they're overblown? Do you think that they are false? Do you have any opinion either way about that?
It could go either way. It may be true as far as per incident, and it may not be true. Is there people that are prejudiced? Of course, in this world. I mean, without a doubt, but...
Thank you. I understand. Thank you. I'm going to skip over you, Mr. DeJesus. I'm going to go to Ms. Zimmerman.
Hello.
And the reason why I'm going to you is because you're a school teacher.
Yes, sir.
So, you listened to what Mr. Bowes had to say, right?
Yes.
As a school teacher, have you experienced, as a witness, any of the things I've been talking about today?
Have I experienced profiling within the schools? Or have I experienced students that have been profiled in their lifetime?
However you want to categorize it, yes.
Well, frankly, as a teacher in this courtroom, I felt profiled the day I did my one-to-one.
Okay.
Because as you remember, when I came in here and I shared which school I worked at, and I shared what classroom my son is in, and I shared some of the population in my school, immediately I felt the body language of some of your team shift, like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. So instantly I felt like I am still a person of integrity minus, or in addition to, where my son goes to school, who's in my class. You're judging me preconceived based on who I am, where a situation in life has taken me. By fate, by chance, the tentacles of this cage reached out and grabbed me in. It doesn't mean where my son is placed, where I am placed, that I wouldn't be fair. But you can't dismiss that some of you may have thought I would be biased based on where my life had placed me. So it wasn't the color of my skin. Again, it was my profession. So I've seen it firsthand. I have had it reversed on me before. When I taught in Fort Pierce, my administrator said, "You're not black enough to understand this culture." And my response to her was, "You're not human enough to understand that I can." So I have been profiled, and I have overcome it. I also know it exists. I do believe there are bad cops, police officers, excuse me, just like there are bad teachers, there are bad nurses, there are bad mothers, there are bad fathers. I believe it exists. I'm sad that it exists. I believe that there was obviously some sort of antecedent that happened prior to this young man making this choice. I can't imagine the life that he may have lived. I don't know where his life has placed him, but I imagine that he did experience profiling. I imagine he was probably tired, fed up, bullied, scared, and I believe it was probably because of where he was placed. Just like tentacles of fate placed me here, and I was profiled and judged. Did I ask for it? No. Did he? Probably not. I don't know.
You make a good point, Ms. Zimmer.
Thank you.
And I want to touch on that a little bit because I think it's important for the jury to know the whole. Some of you we talked to in private. Some of you we talked to in a group. You know what the bad part about this job is? It required us to prejudge you. And I hate to say that, but that's the honest truth. It required us to look at what you write down and try to draw a conclusion. And then based on what we see, to ask certain questions. You're right, Ms. Zimmerman, we did prejudge you. I'm sorry,
Thank
but
you.
we did.
I accept your apology.
And as a result of the information you gave us, we shifted our position. So understand, we have to do that. And you're right, we shouldn't have to, but in the context of what we do have to. Because that's the only way to find out, because we can't tell you all the facts. See, that's how it gets kind of murky. If we could get, guys, here's the book, this is the whole case, read it and come back in a week and then we'll ask you what you feel. It would be easy, right? But we can't do that. So we have to make the judgment call, the prejudgments, ask the question of the former law enforcement officer, of the school teacher who happened to have a certain student in her class, or her son in a court member's class. You know what I mean, I'm saying it backwards. We got to do that. And I hope you won't hold it against me or against the prosecution for doing that, because if we didn't do that, we can't do a job.
And that wasn't my purpose to say it out loud. It was just, if you're...
I didn't think you were. I just used you as an opportunity to educate the group.
Well, and I appreciate you being fair to me and letting me still prove that I'm fair as well. And situations, my point is, situations take us certain places that make us respond in certain ways. And maybe it was his situation that made him respond a certain way. Every reaction has an action. Every cause has an effect. So I understand what premeditated means. I understand that the action happened. There was an officer killed that day. But I think all of us can agree we don't know what happened 20 minutes before, 15 minutes before, 5 minutes before, 10 years before. We don't know. And just like you didn't know if I'd be fair or not, now you know I'm fair. And I believe it's time to be fair to everyone here as well and listen.